Okay, this is a video about, not this, it's a video of, oh no, what's going on? Oh shit, Donald Trump is in my videos. Oh no! Oh my god, what a nightmare. Well, that was a bad start, but I'm going to leave it in for once. This is a video about some advanced project finance structuring. So it's not really that advanced, but I've got it in the advanced page. And there are a number of videos. I haven't put them together. I haven't finished putting this website together. You notice I'm working on this. But this is how we borrow money during the construction phase. And in this borrowing money, I've talked about delay exercise, funding cascades, that sounds so fancy, liquidated damages, operating cash flow during construction. And I'm going to go through a theoretical analysis of this, and then I have this one called a shareholder loan, okay? Now, I think this is a fascinating issue because if you have a shareholder loan, you'd think, here's the way I used to think about shareholder loans. I don't care if you do them. They're all about getting an extra tax deduction. From the senior debt standpoint, the only effect of the shareholder loan is if there's a related tax deduction, and of course that creates a little bit of a problem. It might even be a risk. I think there have been some problems these days. But here's a second effect. If you've got a shareholder loan and you have interest during the construction period on the shareholder loan, so here's what I have to do. I have to capitalize the interest, and I'm going to call that a switch. Let's put a true. Now, okay, just a minute. I don't know if you saw that it conditionally formatted the true. I hope I haven't screwed things up, but I've changed my coloring file as well. Okay, now, so here's the issue. I'm going to do some mechanics in this video, another video, the previous video that I haven't made yet, but it's kind of all in super weird timing, you know. Maybe I will never make it, but this is just going to be the mechanics. Now, if you don't understand mechanics of some of this stuff, it's hard to understand the theory. That's my new point. That's my new philosophy for the day. So I'm going to show you how to make an S-curve with some flexibility. We'll talk about the mechanics of interest capitalization or interest payment. Now I just have to say something here. I always thought this was one of the all-time non-issues, whether you capitalize interest or pay it. I'm going to deal with it. I hate it. I hate the mechanics of it, and I don't think it even makes any difference. Now it causes a horrible circular reference, so we'll use the copy and paste, and then we'll use a function. And I'm going to try to not include too much on the function in here, because those videos get really horrible. Now, so first, let me show you something. I have this shift. If you open the generic macros and press shift alternate C, control alternate C. I'll show you this maybe some other time. If I wanted to change the coloring, I just click this. Now I think it's pretty cool. And I think just having the generic macros, control alt C again. So let's say I just want to use color option 1. And let's say I don't want to color the titles. Then I just press color sheet. Okay, I'm not quite finished with it, but I think that's pretty cool that you can do that. Shift-Alt-C again. This shit says how many rows I've counted in the sheet, how many columns I've counted in the sheet. I think this is pretty hard to do. So it's pretty cool that you can just say, okay, let's open this and see how many columns in the sheet and all that. I wonder if I can see who's the author and all that. I'm sure I can. I'm going to put it back to this one and color the sheet again. I hope you didn't get mad at me for that. I'm trying to, you can look into generic macros and see how to do that. So, where are we? So, let's go to our assumptions. And we have some simple operating inputs. Now, for the operating inputs, I said, let's make an S-curve. And let's do an analysis of really how long the construction period is. I'm going to put a spinner box in there later. And all of these debt funding issues that I'm talking about, if it's a really short construction period, worrying a whole lot about this, what a waste of time. Now, when I put some senior debt, so that's the first thing. And then when I put some senior debt in, here's what I did. I said, let's pretend there was a DSCR and we have some target debt. I'm not going to worry about all the DSCR. This is about funding. And let's have a debt to capital. And let's either put one or the other in and see how these things work if there's a debt input switch or not. And then when we have our debt funding, the first thing we're going to do is decide if we're capitalizing the interest. Again, I think it's a non-issue, but and then we can put pro rata or equity first. Okay, and then finally we put how we're repaying the debt, which is part of this, I guess, how the interest rate is, and I don't have any other stuff. And then we put a second loan in, and this is going to make things a little more complicated, and this is this interesting issue. And I said the shareholder, out of all the equity, the shareholder loan is 90%. I suppose it could be 100%, I don't know. Okay, and then we put some shareholder loan interest in here. Maybe this is way too high. But this shareholder loan interest is going to cause the project cost to go up. And that's the big deal. And then we can capitalize the interest or not capitalize the interest. And I'm curious. I'm trying to work in my dull old brain whether capitalizing the interest on the shareholder loan. Now, I hope you see, maybe you don't. It only has an effect if we have the debt to capital. If we put the debt input, then this interest during construction is a whole non-issue. It's only an issue when the debt to capital is driving the size of the loan. And I put a cash sweep in here. Okay, so let's start a couple of these issues. And these are just mechanical issues. Now I'm going to put an S-curve in. Okay, and to put an S-curve in, oh no, Shift-Alt-C, haha, color sheet again. Okay, it didn't blow up yet. One time it blew up on me, I shouldn't say. Let's put the normal, see this, I don't want this, normal distribution. And we have a construction period. And the normal distribution, as you know, is affected by only two things. One is the mean, and the other is the standard deviation, and that's why we put these two things here. And then we Control B, and then we just put equal NORM DIST, normal distribution, nominal, NORM. And then it says, okay, what's the x? Well, the x is this thing. It's the period. And then the mean is the average I put and the standard deviation. Okay, and then we put a 0 because we want it's got a little bit different thing. All right. Control B, Shift Control R. I hope that still works. Now, when you do this, it adds to 98%. And we only want to do this when we're in the construction period. It's possible when you do this, you could go outside the construction period. Now we're at 96%, and then we put, I don't know, I don't want to put normalized, but I'll put just the S-curve. And that's just going to be this number divided by the sum of the whole thing. I better press the F4 key. Okay, and okay, there's our S-curve. So we have a little bit of a dynamic S-curve, and now this better add up exactly to 1. I'm looking at the 100% down there. Okay, and then we have our capital expenditures, which is our cost times our S-curve. I wanted to put just a little bit of a different S-curve in here. Okay, and then we have our project IRR, which I should have put a little, I'm reminding myself almost, we've got a monthly cash flow. To make it easy, I made it a monthly model. It's easier to make a monthly model than an annual model. It's just harder to interpret. If you ever see a monthly model and go, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's nothing. It's just a bunch of crap. Okay? So, now, let's put our, here's going to be the problem. We have some interest that's capitalized and interest that's paid. And I want to kind of show you this. Now, if we, this for me is really, I'll put sources, uses and sources for debt sizing. Okay, because we kind of, and then this is what we're going to work on is the funding, which is really a cash flow statement. And I'm going to put, interest paid, not interest capitalized. Oops, and I don't know if we really should, you know, we'll see if I might change my, okay, and we'll use some very standard techniques, okay, and we better be a little bit careful. And then I've got our pro rata percentage, which is just that percentage that adds to 100%, and that depends on the specifics of the debt. Now, in here we have some debt issued. Now, this debt issued, if the interest is paid, just a minute, this is the total amount of the debt issued, but if the interest is capitalized, we just want to figure out how much comes from the cash. So, you know, what did I do here? I started with interest capitalized during construction. I'm going to put that as false, so it's interest paid, okay? I should have put a little, you know, checkbox there, okay? All right. And this debt issued, now I didn't talk about this thing, this better be from the cash debt issued, okay? Now, I said, okay, in our uses of funds, we have interest paid and interest capitalized on our base senior debt, okay? And now, on the shareholder debt, we have the same thing. Now, the total debt, well, that's related to the project cost, and that includes the capitalized debt. But a lot of times in the model, we want the debt minus the interest, not the interest paid, the interest capitalized. And that's what this does, the same thing. It's the shareholder debt minus the interest capitalized. And this, we're going to say, is 90% of the equity. Now, I don't think that's a very good way to do it. So, I'm going to leave it. Okay? Now, let's go down. Sorry about that. When we do our debt balance, we have our draws. Our draws are the total debt And this debt better come from, I don't know if I just did that, it better come from the funded debt. Shareholder loan better come from the funded shareholder loan. And this other equity then is the remainder, and that's okay however we do it. Okay, I think. We'll double check all of this, of course. All right, and then I've got a repayment and all that, but the real question is down in the draws. Now, underneath the draws, let's put interest capitalized. So the first thing you do, and we'll put a little switch here. Special column, and we'll go up to the interest capitalized. Now it's false here, so what we'll do is we'll just say, well, the interest that we have, which is the interest rate multiplied by the opening balance, that we'll just take that interest and multiply it times this switch. That's all we'll do to capitalize it. And then when we go to the closing balance, we better add in the capitalized. Should have maybe done it in a better order. Sorry about that. Okay. And then now, when I really want to emphasize mechanically the difference between interest during construction, which is simply an allocation of the interest, and interest capitalized, which affects how your loan balance works. Now, if we have the same debt to capital, if you pay the interest, you're basically going to borrow it anyway. That's why this whole thing is such a kind of non-issue to me. But I want to make sure when you hear IDC, I don't care. IDC is interest during construction. That's an accounting concept. Capitalized of interest, that's more like a loan term, okay, a part of the term sheet. All right, and if we turn this on, I really should have put a switch there, shouldn't I have? Okay, then we will have interest capitalized, and then all of the interest that's recorded is capitalized. And we have a higher debt balance, which I hope you can see causes a little bit of a problem. Okay, now the total repayment here, that better come from the total sources, so it's really important to get all that right. And then we can put up here the interest capital. I gotta make sure that's right. The interest capitalized is the sum of just this whole row, and I hope we better have turned it off. And I've already got a circular reference. Okay. Of course, it should have been a circular reference. This interest capitalized is affected by this and all that. Okay, just a minute. No problem. No problem. I'm not going crazy yet. Well, a little bit. And then this interest capitalized is affected by the next one too. Oh, God. Okay. Let me switch off the video for just 1 second to think about this. I think I'm gonna put a fixed amount here. Let's put an interest capitalized at 10, and then put the sum. I said I'd turn it off, and I'm too lazy to turn it off today. Okay, so we have the interest capitalized here, which I see another problem. It didn't switch off appropriately. And then we'll make that equal to the fixed level. Okay, and of course I've got to fix that mechanics. All right, so that's our first issue. And so I'm going to multiply this by the construction period, because we're going to not capitalize the interest after the construction period. All right, so that's the basic mechanics. Now, the interest that we I'm going to add a line, interest paid during construction. So I hope you see it's just maybe, I think maybe the terminology, this is a different way of, if we take the total interest allocated to construction minus the capitalized interest, the remainder is paid. And that's really what we should be putting up in this statement up here, where we put the interest paid, put a sum of all of the interest that's paid. Okay, and I'm going to put that over here. Oh, another circular reference. And let's put a 0 here, and let's put the interest paid during construction. Now, I'm, in a way, happy I'm getting all these circular references, because I'll tell you, circular references, I have said, they're like a cancer. They just start growing. They just start taking over everything. And then you can put about 100 zillion copy and pastes in here, and then you've got, and then remember what happens if you have a reference, or if you try to put the iteration button, it might take forever, and it just starts causing all these problems. So I'm going to try to show you this is a difference. So we got to put a copy and paste that makes this difference go to 0 by changing the fixed amount here. Okay, and we're not finished, because we haven't filled in the shareholder debt. Now, if the shareholder loan affects the cost, and the cost affects the debt, and the debt affects this, we have these kind of multiple circular references going on, which is just such a pain, isn't it? So let's go and just work through the mechanics of this first. Okay. Now the mechanics are, I have the same kind of thing, but this time when I first did this, just to demonstrate the really interesting theoretical issue associated with interest during construction on a shareholder loan, I just put this. Now, okay, so we'll just make this time it better be the interest capitalized, F4, just in case, I'm going to put it during the construction period. I think, I forgot how we did this. And then I called it interest allocated, and then we can put the same thing, interest paid during construction. Okay, and that's just the total interest we have during the construction minus the interest capitalized. Okay, and now we'll go up and put those two separate things in our sources and uses. So the first thing is we put the interest paid, and I'm good. Should I be lazy? Yes. Oops. Shift space bar. Let's just get the whole thing. Huh. It didn't cause a circular reference yet. That's odd. And then I'll put the interest capitalized. Okay. I better not be a tiny bit more careful on this one because of the true reference. Finally. Another circular reference. Okay. I'm going to put a 10 here. And put our computed here as our sum. Alright, and then it shouldn't be a shock that we have a circular reference. And we're going crazy with the circular references. Okay. And now I take the difference. Okay, and I put an equal sign and make it fixed. And my question is why this didn't cause a circular reference, but I'll get back to that. Okay, now I'm going to pause the video for a minute, and really I don't want to take too long, so I've shown you the kind of interest capitalization mechanics. I'm going to make a copy and paste and come and show it to you because I think it'll just be too boring to sit and watch it and make mistakes. And then I'm going to make a function, and I'm going to make mistakes on that, but I'm going to show you how it works. So, oh, it's already 25 minutes on this video. I've really got to hurry up. Okay. Okay. I finished this. In making a copy and paste routine, it took about 5 minutes. All you do is get the total difference. You take the fixed and make it equal to the computed for each separate one. I think in the last, I had a little error. This was still taking the capitalized interest, not the paid interest. Okay. And you, let's say I switch this to capitalized. And then you run this copy and paste, and it goes around and around and does it. Now, if you did that every time you do a little experiment with any of these things, you'd have to hook it to the copy and paste routine. We could change any of these things, hook it to the copy and paste routine. We couldn't make a goal seek, which is pretty important sometimes. So let's say I want this and this, and I run it, the copy and paste routine. I could have also put an iteration button in. I don't know if the iteration would have taken longer or shorter. I suppose I should have tested that. Okay? So that's the copy and paste. Now, I went to the read array function. In fact, it's still called read array. I read that in, and it gave me a whole bunch of hints to get started. And then all of this came straight from the read array function. I didn't have to use any of this. And then here's what I did. Oh, look at all those formulas. It is a lot. I totally agree. Then you want to put the IDC paid for capitalized, senior for shareholder, capitalized. And then you go backwards and say, here's the project cost. It's a total construction expenditure plus all the IDCs. It's just this formula. The senior debt is the project cost times the 80%. It's right here. Except if it's an input debt, then you'll have to just input the debt directly. The equity is the total cost minus the debt. And then we get how much of that equity was funded by the shareholder loan. Okay, and then you go backwards. What you need to do is get this IDC for the senior debt and all that. And to get that, I'm not saying it's not a pain. You got to first initialize it. You're going to make an iteration loop and then a loop around the construction period. And then you're first going to just compute the interest, just like we did. And that loop is basically down here. It's basically all of this stuff. Okay, and you're just replicating what Excel just did. And you're checking your work, by the way, too. And then you decide, well, if it's capitalization, we do one thing, or if it's not, we do something else. And while you're programming this, you're reading in all the separate variables you need, including the debt to capital, the input debt switch to shareholder percent, all of that. Seeing how long it takes me to really describe it. Okay, so you've got the interest on the opening balance. Now the debt balance is set to 0 to begin with because we build it up eventually. And then the funding needs are the interest you pay, not the interest you capitalize, the interest you pay. And I computed the pro rata percent. And then you computed the debt funding for the senior and the debt funding for the sub. And that's a function of the amount of debt funding, which is way down here. And that's where a big part of the circular reference comes from. Now, once you've got the debt funded, you get the debt balance in the next month. And that's just the original debt balance you had starting with 0. You add the funding, and you add the IDC, which could be 0, depending on the switch, the IDC capitalized. And, of course, I make some spelling mistakes and everything else. And then you get the total project cost and you're finished. And you go around about 10 times and you can do a much fancier loop to get out of this and all that. And then, so that was a pain. Oh, no question, it was a pain. But look at the benefit. We just put these in, we put all these in, we change this around, and then you're clunking along, but this thing has computed it long ago. And over here, they're the right numbers. And you don't have to do any copy and paste. And you're very happy, I think. And see, it took that long. I don't want to input the debt, and I want to do all the analysis. So instead of this, over here, you just, instead of making it fixed, you put an equal sign, and you make it equal to the amount in the function. You make this an equal to the amount in the function. And you make this one. And it's not easy, but when you're finished, oh my God, does it feel good. So then you can do all of this. And now, that's how we can do all the analysis. We can switch and see if the capitalized interest is really making any difference, if it's making any difference on the senior, if it's making any difference on the sub. We can change the interest rate on the debt, and it's all working. And we can even do goal seeks and everything else. Now that's really the funding circularity. I didn't put a option for equity bridge loan and equity up front, and maybe I'll do that later or something. But that's the mechanics. That's the mechanics of funding and the shareholder loan, and that's enough of the video, because it's on more than half an hour of your precious time.